Good morning, everyone. This is Sun Kim's Daily Global Briefing on 17th April. Last Wednesday, it was the Korea's National Assembly voting, so I rested on Wednesday. And today, I have a lot of things to say, and I'll start it from the indices and the commodities. Okay, number one, three indices, the Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500, they all closed with a little small rising, yes, and especially the Nasdaq, it raised more than 1%. It's 1.66% rise because the COVID-19 influenced some stocks like Amazon or Google, Alphabet, or whatever. It related with some kind of deliveries or any other IT companies. So that it seemed like that makes some kind of box pattern, but the indices future said that it made some kind of gap rising. So tonight it'll make another big rise again, I think. And VIX futures, it shows that the falling, and now the VIX is falling. That the stock market and the option and the futures and option, they are all stabilized. So it is a good news. And commodities, the safe assets, they are make some kind of price adjusting, and the other commodities, they are rising now. And as you see, the gold falls a very small amount, and then now it'll make some kind of price adjusting. And next thing is another thing that you have to check is the palladium. Palladium, it also makes some kind of very small changes and adjusting. I mean, the good news is that maybe the palladium will go up again, and it means that you have to check the automotive stocks like a Ford or GM or the Chrysler, whatever. Okay. And the silver and platinum, the copper, it rise, and also you have to check the two things: the platinum and the copper. They rise 1.59%, and it is still rising, and this means that all the U.S. industrial and the economic factors, they are recovering now. It is good news. And number three is about the oil, the crude. WTI, the May, it is around $20 per barrel, and is rising. And the problem is that the futures of the June of WTI is more than $26 now. So there are so many gaps, more than $6 gap, and then it shows. And nowadays, many traders are getting to the June's WTI future. So I think the economy will boost sooner or later because of this big gaps between the May and June futures. I think, and also I think this May one is now it is almost the closing time, but still it is it shows some kind of backwardation between the June's futures. So we have to be careful about this. And also the Brent oil in June futures, it shows that the rising, and that now it is dealing with $28.82 per barrel. And the Dubai oil, we have to check after 4 o'clock in Korean time, but it's still good. Yeah. But the problem is that Dubai oil is too low, and much more than the WTI now, and then it'll make some kind of problem in the Middle East, and maybe Saudi Arabia will have some kind of a bad news about their financial systems or whatever. Okay. And the soybeans shows the U.S.-China trading, and it just rises a little bit, but it's not from the China's relationship, but from the hog farmer. I mean, the Smithfield is closed for a long time, infinity of times, until the COVID-19 is over, pandemic is over. Okay. So the hog farmer decided to raise their hogs, and then so that the demand of soybeans are now getting higher. So that's the reason why the soybean price goes up. Okay, next is the news. I got 4 news from Bloomberg and Wall Street, and I would like to start the 2 news from Bloomberg. Number 1, the Trump guidelines may have some states reopening in a month. So he said that within 4 weeks he will open some states. So he said that on Thursday he revealed some guidelines about how to reopen the U.S. economy, and the 29 states will reopen the states soon. And in the briefing, he said that in some words, literally tomorrow. So many people are confused about it. So he really open it tomorrow or not? So they're debating, but it doesn't matter. Okay. Officially, he said that it'll open within 4 weeks. So don't be confused about it. So schools, but daycares and bars, they cannot open. They should not reopen before phase 2. And according to these guidelines, the restaurants, movie theaters, and the sports venue like a baseball park or like a football park and whatever, they could reopen, or they could open in phase 1 if they practice strict social distancing. So that the players, they have to run with no people around the stadium. Oh well, I think maybe many NHL and many baseball fans, they are really mad about it. But you have to stay in your home, and then you have to check everything by TV. Yeah. And also the another news is that virus pushes China's economy into first contraction in decades. So the first quarter of the China GDP shrank 6.8% in the first quarter from a year ago. And this is the worst performance since at least 1992, when official released quarterly GDP started. And they're missing the consensus forecast of 6% drop. It is much further drops falling. I mean, it is not just the drop; it's really collapsing of the GDP. The factory output fell just 1.1% in March, and the retail sales slipped 15.8%, while investment decreased 16.1% in the first 3 months of the year. So it is really horrible things in China. But still, there's another one that is waiting for the China too. Now we'll check the Wall Street Journal again, and then the supermarkets are just mid-sections as coronavirus cuts supply. So nowadays so many processing factories, they are closed for a long time without unlimited time. I mean until the COVID-19 is suppressed, and then everything go back and reopen the economy. So the supermarket, they are decreasing the sections of the meat section. So USDA said that the cattle's decreased 14%, and hogs 6%, and the chickens 2% decrease in the slaughter and processed amount. So this means that unfortunately the American households, they will face some kind of a deficit of the red meat, or sometimes white meat. So that you better to check the markets and get some beefs or the pork or the chickens. And this will also influence the China, because the China needs a lot of pork, and still the factory is closed, so there is no way to get in there. But you know what? The pork already exported to the China, they are still in their custom, and they are still waiting for some orders from the Chinese government. There is another tragedy. And another news from Saudi Arabia said that Saudi Arabia will issue $7 billion sovereign bonds to cover the deficit gap, and it has issued bonds since 2016. They are fighting with the U.S. with the oil chicken game, and then after that they issued the sovereign bonds until 5 years till now. And the sovereign bonds and the Saudi sovereign wealth fund, they are buying the really bargain hunting. They are really underestimated to a very underestimated assets like this is kind of undervalued, and so now the stock market collapsed, and then everything is so cheap now. So they are buying the stocks, bonds, and cruise operator, and a soccer club like a Newcastle, and etc. And then they'll find the profits from them to cover the loss from the sovereign bond. The oil producers are trying to hedge the loss from the low oil price in this time. Now I'll check the market forecast, and I'd like to tell you three things. Number one, the stock indices, the futures, the three indices from the futures, they are showing that they're jumping up with the gap. And the Dow Jones, maybe it'll break the ceiling at the 24K lines, and it'll go. It still goes up now, but has some possibility of falling again because of the China GDP collapse. And then another one is that the commodities are rising again, and the difference between the May and June, the WTI futures, it shows two big gaps. The May futures of the WTI shows the backwardation compared with the June's futures, so that maybe you better to go up there. Maybe you better to go to the June's, and now the traders are mainly dealing with the WTI on June's future, and then. But it is a good news that it is some kind of signal of the recovery of the U.S. economy. So it is a good news for the stock traders. And number three, the safe asset, it will face some kind of price adjusting as the economy stabilized, and maybe sooner or later they will keep their prices and make some kind of box patterns. And so the dollars and the gold, they will make some kind of box patterns, and still we have chances on the silver and the platinum. So I recommend you for those two items. Okay, finally, today's focus is I have three things today, and we have to check today's market and also in the weekend news. Will China GDP collapse it influenced the U.S. markets or not? This especially in the stock market. I think it's already pre-reflected on the market, so it won't make any falling of the stock market again. But the problem is that the U.S. companies they have some kind of performance seasons now, and then they will show very, very low performances too, and everybody knows about it. So I think it'll make another shock to the markets, but it won't get that long time, and then it will rebound again, and maybe in early May, I think. And next is that does U.S. reopen drive signal of the economic recovery? The COVID-19 is still it is working on. It is still very bad in the New York state New York, and the California, and the East and West Coast. But the problem is that they are only the really big megacities, metropolis or the megalopolis, but not in the rural areas or the suburbans. And so in that area, U.S. will reopen, and then they will make some kind of raw materials and some kind of basic materials for the higher industry. So sooner or later, the U.S. economy will recover in very modest patterns. And number three is really, I don't want to say it, but the famine is another threat to the global world, not just in the market, but also to the whole world. Catastrophe after pandemic. That COVID-19 influenced the food industries and the food factories now. As you see, in case of Smithfield, as you see, they closed for indefinite time. So if that lasts long time, then many households and many people will need some kind of help for the food, from the food. I mean, and not in the U.S. but also in China, they will have a lot of problems about the pork supply, because nowadays the China has a lot of demand for the peoples, but the ASF, the African swine fever, it really swiped more than 200 million hogs into the ground, and now they need a much more demand the pork, and the pork factory in the U.S. they closed, and also their pork is already exported pork. They are still stay in the customs, U.S. China custom, and as time goes on, and this interval is getting longer, and many people from China, they will suffer from the starving, and also they will have some another issues of the famine and some kind of starving. So it will influence another shock to the global stock market and the financial system too. So we have to check this weekend about this news, and also we have to check this family issues for a long time. And this is the end of the 17th April global breaking today. And keep your principles safe and think wisely, and I hope you have a successful investment. Thank you very much. God bless you, and have a good weekend. Thank you.